Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Authentic Audience Podcast. I am back in San Francisco this week and very excited to introduce you to, if you don't already know her, my guest this week is Janne Robinson. She's joining me all the way from Greece, so I'm very grateful that we were able to work this out. I have been following Janne on social media for years before we actually met, and a few months ago, our paths finally crossed. The universe decided it was time. We've been collaborating and working together. And I can honestly say she is as real and as authentic as she appears, which is always such an exhale for me when that happens. And today on the show, or on this episode, we dive pretty deep. She's an amazing storyteller, and of course, it's very real. The stories that she shares, we talk all about her writing, the haters, of course. She shares very openly, if you do not follow her already, about love, about sex, about life, about controversial issues going on in this world, and she's giving a voice to a lot of women, and I really respect her. I really appreciate what she has to share. I don't always agree either with what she has to share, but she is always so authentic and true to herself, and I respect that and hold her so highly because of that. We talk about the moment that she decided to really start to share super openly and vulnerably how that happened. She shares moments of inauthenticity, but overall, this is called Authentic Audience Podcast, and I think she really encompasses just that. So I'm so grateful to have her on the show today, and I hope you enjoy it. Janne Robinson is a 21st century feminist beat poet. As she says, she takes slabs of her heart and shares them with the world for a living. Janne is the author of the book, This Is for the Women Who Don't Give a Fuck. She has directed multiple short films using lines from her poems. She is a public speaker, leads retreats around the world, and offers one-on-one coaching to writers and entrepreneurs. Janne is a disruptor, and I am grateful to know her. Welcome, Janne.
Hi, I'm happy to be here. I'm super stoked to be here.
Where are you? What's happening?
I went on a last minute adventure to the western side of Crete. And
Naturally.
2 years ago, I surfed here 2 years ago. I was in Bali and met a woman who was like, there's surfing in Crete. And I was like, no way there's surfing in Crete. And it's a beautiful old Venetian harbor town. And there's a little surf shack called like Henya Surf Club and some surfboards. So came here to get some waves because I'm missing surfing in California.
I love that story. We can back up to a little bit how we met and how we know each other and came to be here. But when you were working together on boundaries, I think is like the biggest thing that comes to mind. And when you told me that you were going to stay in Greece to continue to work on your writing and build some stuff that we were working on together, it's just like, it continues to inspire me how you really do put yourself first. And it really triggered me for a while because I just I'm trying to change the dialogue. But when you were like, oh yeah, I'm just going to stay in Greece and do my calls from here, I was like, whoa, I could do that. It's just pretty powerful. And I'm glad that you're there. And just to back up for a second, we've only known each other for a few months. But I feel like we've had a big dose of one another in the last few months. We've been talking a lot. I reached out to Janne. I've been following her for years. I don't know when that was that I started following you, when you were on that trip with my friends Mike and Gabs, but that's when I started following you and have been being triggered and challenged and inspired ever since. And it's like, I want to work with her. So a couple months ago, the opportunity presented itself and I reached out, and it was kind of a fuck yes for both of us. So we've been doing some collaborating on your marketing side, and you've been coaching me on the entrepreneur side of things, which has been interesting. It's brought up a lot, and I think I've made more changes in my personal life and in my business in the last 3 months than I have like maybe in the last 3 years from working with you. So it's been a really powerful experience. And maybe we should talk about that first, because this coaching, I don't know if everyone knows that you do this. And it's maybe, okay, I love the writing, put the writing aside. My favorite piece of you is seeing you on those calls. When did you start coaching? I don't even know this answer.
So I started when I first began writing kind of publicly. It was on Facebook at first. I wrote like little notes, and then I started to write for Elephant Journal probably 6 or 7 years ago. And when I started to actually speak to what was inside of my heart and to talk about things that were real, people flooded in with comments and messages and emails. And in the beginning of my writing career 5 years ago, I would literally spend hours every day in this little cafe called the Gumboot Cafe in Roberts Creek. And people would write me their life story, and I would sit there and I would treasure it. I remember just feeling in awe that people felt safe to sit down and share something so intimate with a stranger. And I've also learned through the last 6 years, sometimes people write me these like 20 paragraph emails and they want a response. And other times they literally just want to say it to someone, just like get it off their chest, and they're not looking for anything but a space, and it's still beautiful that my email is a safe space to unload somebody's life story. And so I sat there, and for me, it was a huge gift. It was a huge gift to have one share on an article or one comment and, or one follower or whatever it was in the beginning. And so I would sit and spend hours responding to people and giving just kind of advice. And, for me, it is really just supporting and seeing and trying to help people. That's always kind of that piece there is like, hey, what do I have in my toolbox? What do I have in my toolbox? And what can I give to this person from what I know? And knowledge is something that we read from a book, and wisdom is through experience. And very often I'm teaching directly through my experiences with coaching, because I feel like that's what we have wisdom on and what we are qualified to speak to. And so, I started to respond to all these comments and messages and emails. And then after a while, when things went viral, there would be like 400 comments, and I would respond to every single one of them. That was important to me. And the editors at Elephant Journal were like, I can't believe that you respond to everyone. And then I started to get burnt out, because I was spending like 6 hours a day, sitting like fucking chugging coffee in the back corner of this like little cafe in Roberts Creek. But to be honest, at that point in my life, I had left Edmonton and this life that wasn't authentic to pursue working with this filmmaker who, she was my idol. And I had moved into a cabin on a coast full of like rednecks and hippies and artists, and there was like 10 young people. And so I had a lot of time to respond to comments and messages, but then it got to a point where I was like, okay, this is not sustainable.
Yeah.
And I was like, still want to support people, but not sustainable. And a woman that I met was like, why don't you mentor people? And I was like, cool. Yeah. So at first I just called it mentoring. And I began in Victoria. It was like 5 years ago. And I remember just understanding and distinctly like, okay, money is energy, and people are here, and, they're wanting this to come in, and they're wanting to have this, get this, feedback from me. And so, totally. I'll just make that a service. And I remember sending it to my web guy. Like I created 3 programs, and one woman in the women's group actually is one of my first clients that I had. She was around that time. And I just took on, and I remember hitting publish on social media and getting like all of these, like sitting, you get your email dings.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sitting on the couch and like, 5-10 minutes after I published the post saying, hey, I've started to mentor, it was just like ding, 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 ding. And I got like tons of emails. I filled my calendar for 4 months with clients, and I had already been doing it. And it's funny because people come to me and they're like, I want to coach, or I want to be a painter, I want to be a writer. They've been writing for 7 years. They've been coaching lame ex-boyfriends and friends and family for like 10 years, not getting paid. So very often we do something for a long time before identifying, oh, this is something that I'm good at. This is something that I have experience in, which makes me qualified to be a teacher, and something that I'm passionate about. And people are already knocking on my door for it. So coaching for me started about 5 years ago, and it really, I was also healing. I had a friend who I had a friend who actually committed suicide, and I was writing a lot about my grief. And so in the beginning of my coaching, I attracted a lot of clients that had sadness, and it was more personal development coaching. And it's really evolved in the last 5 years, kind of also where I am, to be like more business consulting sometimes, and more. And then I said, I just want to work with writers. And I did a bunch of creative writing coaching. And now I kind of float between the three of them. And, I think that everything is personal development. Like people come to me with business problems. I'm like, this is a personal problem. And how we do one thing is how we do all things. So it's going to show up everywhere. So that's kind of how I got started into coaching. And then, when I started coaching, people were like, well, do you teach workshops? And I was like, sure, and then they were like, and then I got hired to teach workshops at retreats. And then I was like, well, fuck, if people are hiring me to teach a workshop at a retreat, I'm going to host my own fucking retreats. And then I did that, which was a lot of work. Yeah. And I was like, I think I like just teaching workshops at retreats. So now I've kind of, have a little bit less of experiences doing that, and still doing the coaching piece, and workshops every once in a while as well, though.
I love that. And I think one thing that I've learned about you in the coaching process is you really do walk the talk. So as an entrepreneur, I see you as somebody who's really got it. Like you are very successful in your business. You are very inspiring in a lot of ways, but you have a life. And I think that is the most inspiring piece to me. And you give yourself permission to sort of have a life. And one thing that's come up for me in the business coaching, so I came on to coach with you in my business, but we don't really talk about my business. It's personal things that are sort of standing in the way of my business. So when I tell people about working with you and doing the coaching, it's like a coaching program for entrepreneurs, but we don't talk about business. We talk about everything that affects our business. Setting boundaries, time management, like self-care rituals, all of these things that lead to burnout and resentment and, all of that stuff that is bound to happen when you are an entrepreneur. So it's been really amazing. And the other piece I wanted to say in that is when you are talking to me about the flow of how this came up, it's just you really do like feel into what's sort of happening in that moment. Like there's no like 5-10 year business plan. It's like, this is what people need right now. I'm going to offer this. And then you offer it and it works. Because it's not really coming from this, like, how do I expand this? How do I grow this? How do I make more money? It's like, oh, here's something that somebody needs. I'm already offering that. Let's create a business model around it. So it's sort of like the truth comes first. And I've worked with you very closely, so I know that truth is really big for you. And that's really what you've done for me, and what you're doing in the coaching is people just want to be seen. And you see people, you just drop in, even if there's 12 people on a call and there's one person that sort of needs you in that moment, you just drop in and see them in a way that the rest of us then like see them. And it's just the way you can, for me, hold space, see people, and bring out the truth, just like so quickly. And it's something that I do in my business too, is really help people sort of like see the truth of like, why are you creating this why are we putting this out there? What's the reason behind it? And then that really helps us like decide on the offering and the pricing and all of that. But leading with the truth, I think, is huge. And you do that, and you've done that in your business, and you've done that with me, and you've done that with all of your clients and in your writing. And it's just really obvious. And for a world that might not be ready to hear the truth, sometimes I feel like that could present some challenges. And I had a friend the other day say to me, I did this fun thing for my birthday where I asked my close group of friends to share with me the thing they loved most and the thing that they liked least about me. And one of my friends shared this thing, and she said, when you meet somebody who isn't on your level, who isn't ready to hear it, who you're maybe triggering with your words, how can you maybe have a little more compassion for that person or for that situation or understanding? And I feel like you do a pretty good job of that. You meet people regularly who are not on your level or are not maybe ready to hear the truth. I've seen it in your Instagram comments. I've been one of those people at times. I was talking to you on a call a couple weeks ago, and I said, Yana, people either love you or hate you, and there's really no in between. And how does that, it seemed like that sat well with you. I didn't know if that would upset you, but just what is that process? Like, you share very openly, you share your truth, you share depth that I think a lot of people, it's needed. People are hungry for it. Obviously, we can see through your success that people are ready to hear it, but some aren't. And how does that sort of feel on a daily basis, being so vulnerable and so open and sort of getting negative feedback sometimes?
Yeah. So one of the biggest pieces that shows that for me is that, like, I know in my own journey as a human, sometimes I'm not ready to see a part of myself or do something. Like, I've had calls with coaches where they've asked me to do something that makes me so incredibly uncomfortable that I am like, I had a coach who wanted me, we were working on my father wound probably over 3 years ago. It was a while ago, and I've been working on my father wound for like my whole life. But he wanted me to reach up with my hands and outstretched and yell data and do it over and over and over again. And, the thing that showed up for me was like, this is so stupid. And I was so uncomfortable, and it felt like I wasn't it felt like it took my power away, and I was triggered by it. And it was the most triggered I've ever been by something that a coach has asked me to do. And like, that's not true. Another time I left a personal development seminar, when I was living in Edmonton, when it was minus 30 degrees Celsius, without shoes on in the snow, and walked in my socks. And I was not sure I was ever going to go back into the room, because I had seen a part of myself that was so scary that I wasn't sure if I had the courage to face it. And so when I think about that, as I speak my truth and the things for me that are, honest and show up, and if people are not ready to look at the parts of themselves that I might mirror or show them, or like arise certain pieces in them, they're going to run away. And if they're not going to run away, they're going to yell and defend it. And, I don't know if it's Abraham Hicks talks a lot about the fact that, we have our world and our story and our beliefs, and within that we feel safe. Mm-hmm. Like, we pave out what makes us feel safe. And then when people think other things, we go, it kind of threatens our world that we've built. And so we need to defend that world to feel safe, because we either need to change our world if it isn't true, right? And we can get knocked off our socks. So I think that people feel intimidated sometimes, if on a lot of different levels. It's like when someone strongly speaks their truth, and if it's a belief that's different than ours, just anyone, we don't feel safe. And we need to be able to understand that it's okay to have different beliefs sometimes as other people, and to be able to hear them, and to know that people walk around in their own worlds with their own stories and their own truths all the time. So now when I see someone trolling and being angry or being mean or it's like they're just defending the hell out of their story and their world because that is what they believe. And the second piece is if somebody can't take it or doesn't want to be there, it's like they also might not be ready to see something that's inside of them. Like very often when I'm triggered, I get to go like, all right, what's that for me? You know, if I'm like, oh, this person's so restless, it's like, where am I restless in my life? And being able to look at those pieces. So yeah, I think that's really helped. And I think it's Maya Angelou has a quote that says, you know, don't pick it up. And throughout certain points in my career, I've picked up too much hate and it's really hurt me. And at certain points in my career, I've picked up too much love and that's also really hurt me. And so now staying really neutral and, you know, not drinking the love up with a straw, being like, you know, and also not putting the hate inside of my body and letting it rule me is kind of how I survive. It's, you know, I think that we should write and speak to our ideas as if we are alone on the moon. That's it. No one's ever going to read it, see it, hear it. And then, you know, true art isn't neutral. When I first started to write, I would say an idea or a thought that I knew that was going to be conflicting for people. And then underneath my idea, I would go, and I understand how you might think, and I could see how you could feel. And then I realized that we can't do that. Good art does make people feel something. And when we feel something, even if we feel anger, it's like good, you know, like at least we need to feel our emotions and we're allowed to have different truths. So, yeah, I've learned that large reactions are a gift and that I'm absolutely sensitive as shit and they hurt. And so not picking up anything is really what I strive to do. And then I have to balance that with still being aware and seeing people that are reading my work, which is always a balance and a piece. But yeah, those are kind of the biggest things that have helped me with, you know, and it's just about being honest and dealing with how people deal with honesty.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that so much of what you said is so powerful and so important, is just the sharing of your truth and not really worrying about, I mean, for me, it's funny because I've actually like come full circle on some of the pieces that you've written or opinions that you've stated. And at first I was like, I cannot, like, why? And then I do the thing, like, why is this triggering me? And it was actually just this last weekend, I was hanging out with two individuals who know you, and I was getting a heavy talking to by a friend of mine about Botox, because it's something that I've been considering. I have this like lazy eye, or not this lazy eye, but whatever, you know, about my eye problems. And so we were like kind of coming up with this scheme, and I got completely like hammered from a very close friend who I love about, you know, why I shouldn't do it. And we just kind of looked at each other, my other friend, and we were like, Yana was right, you know? And it's like I had been so triggered by that post, and just sort of to come back around like in my own time. And I think that's one thing that you do, is it's just coming back to this like holding space. Like you're just doing your thing, you're walking the talk, you're affecting so many people. You've affected me, you've affected a lot of people in my life. I've talked about you. They're like, oh, I follow her, I love her. And in all of it, what has come back to it for me and why I work with you is the authenticity. So it is never strayed. Like you are so authentic, whether you're sharing positively or negatively or light or dark or something that's triggering or controversial, whatever it is. At the end of every single post I read and thing that I watch, I'm like, she is so authentic. Mm-hmm. And that inspires me above a lot of things. And I realized that recently. I talk about how Donald Trump is authentic, and that pisses a lot of people off. But it's something I realized watching a clip of him once that I actually do hold really valuable, because he was saying something horrible in this clip that I did not agree with. But the first thing that came to my mind was, fuck, he's so authentic. Like it's so real to him, you know? And when I read, that is something that, as fucked up as that sounds, like I appreciate so much in people. Like I see it first. And I really see it in you. And I think that I said at the beginning, I do believe you're here to disrupt. And we all sort of have our own karmic paths. And I've also been called a disruptor in my own industry. And I see that with you in your industry. Like we're working on some, ads and things like that together. I'm like, we can't say fuck on Facebook ads. Or like, can we say vagina on Facebook ads? Like I'm trying all these new things because it's disrupting what is acceptable, or what, Facebook or whatever has deemed like the rules that we have to follow, and you're not following them. So it makes my life really fun. But I like wouldn't have it any other way, because I think, my company is called Authentic Audience, and you've been able in this like weird tech age of sharing your heart online on a little platform called Instagram. It's continued to stay authentic throughout the whole process. And I know we just talked about this a little bit, but the writing itself, if you haven't read Janne's writing, I highly recommend it, but that's sort of profound in its own way. And then you sort of took it to the next level by just, continuing to share pieces of your heart, but it might not necessarily be in the form of a poem or in the form of a piece of writing. Sometimes you just get on your story and talk about something that's like really powerful that's happening for you. And when you do that, I often find it's happening for me too. We all live on this sort of like funny energy level where we're all sort of dealing with similar karma or baggage at the same time. And so I guess, going back to that is when I'm talking about Janne sharing her truth, I'm talking about sharing beyond the writing. You've sort of become I hate this word, but an influencer in a lot of ways, like beyond the art, beyond the poetry, beyond the work, just in who you are and who you carry yourself and how you walk in this life. And it's funny I say that because your tagline or your sign off is walk tall. And I do believe you do that. And it goes beyond the work. It goes beyond your art. And was there like a moment that you sort of decided, okay, I'm going to share more than just my poetry with these crazy people in the world? Or did it just sort of start happening?
Before I dive into that, I just also want to note that I wish that I have also thought the same thing about appreciating I appreciate a no filter on all humans. So I also have noted like, wow, like I really wish he wasn't a president because he's an idiot, but I do appreciate his authenticity. So I definitely had that thought. And I love Charles Bukowski, who's a very honest, but also, was sexist and there was all kinds of stuff. But for me, it's like my takeaway from him was honesty. So so I also note that. I know that it's hard to say anything about Trump that could be borderline positive just because he's such a disaster. I have a poem called Hitler for President that I wrote when he was elected that was a bit of a ballsy thing to publish while I was going through immigration stuff, but I did.
But that's the thing. That's what I mean. Like that's, it's not going to stop you. And I think but another piece of that I'm working on is fear. And fear is there. And like, obviously, there's a fear of, obviously your immigration experience was a fearful one, but you don't let it stop you. And I think like we're all afraid and we all feel fear around sharing, around being open about selling ourselves, which is what you and I both do, but you do it anyway. And it's really inspired me to sort of like push beyond that fear and share more. And I think we're coming into a space where like I really see your dharma as truth telling, and mine, there's a truth aspect to what I do as well. It's really important. And so when I connect with people on that level, it's like, as long as we're telling the truth here, like, I don't care how many people we piss off, because there's that small piece of the pie that we're creating this for and that we're speaking to. And it's just really fun working with you in that way. But going back to where this came from, or like how you...
Yes. Oh yeah, I got the moment, baby. I got
Tell me the moment.
Yeah, for sure. Totally. And I also just want to say that for me is like, on the other side of fear for me is often just love. I think that like our context and our new limits and the things that we're getting through, it's like, it's often just love. And the moment that I really decided when I met my why, and, my why is to share slabs of my heart with this world for a living, and to be truthful and give permission for people to touch their truth. It was, I'd been writing things, and they were honest, and they were sweet, and they were flowy, and it was cute. It was kind of like I was going on a first date with my writing voice for a little while, and I really saw my voice evolve a lot. And at first thought I was going to be a travel writer, and I was traveling all over the world. I was like, someone was like, yeah, my ex-girlfriend was a travel writer, you should do that. And I'm a total nonfiction writer, so I would write about who I became in places I went to. So I was rejected by like 100 travel magazines, and then landed in Elephant Journal, which, journal. It was a safe place to share that part of me and to be really vulnerable. And they were in alignment with that piece. And I wrote a piece. I had an abortion shortly after moving to the Sunshine Coast, in that little cabin in Roberts Creek. And I found out I was pregnant when I got the internship, which was a whole process, moving there pregnant and having an abortion, and kind of going through it in this community where I knew two people. And I wrote this piece the day after I had my abortion, and it flowed out of me. I was laying in bed, and the first day physically after an abortion is pretty painful. And emotionally, I was, had a loser of a boyfriend who didn't show up for the appointment, and had told me the day after the abortion that he'd actually found a way to get the money together, but just made the choice to like not come. And so I was processing a lot of different things, and this piece fell out of me that was very much a play-by-play of the emotional process in making the choice to have an abortion. Like from the moment I found out I was pregnant, to the conversations I had with everyone in my life, neutrality, non-neutrality, conversations with doctors that were neutral and not neutral, to, being in, I had a doctor that I went in to see about where I was at in my process, and, what my options were as far as a procedure. Cause I don't know if it was 8 weeks or 6 weeks, I forget. And he told me, I don't recommend that you get an abortion. And, I'm thankful that I'm enough of who I was, and I was at that moment, to look at him and just say, I did not come here for your personal opinion. I came here for your medical opinion. And I would request that in the future that you check your personal opinion, because if I was a 14-year-old girl who had yet to touch my spine, that could have influenced my choice. And I talked about everything from, showing up to this procedure room. And I think that I'm pro-abortion. I think that we absolutely, they're our bodies. It is our choice. And that being said, biologically, we are wired as women to be mothers. My brain tried to change my mind. I was starting to hear myself saying that I wanted kids before I knew I was pregnant, and looking at babies, and like biologically, my body was like, get on the fucking mama program. And it was hard. It was hard to have my vagina suctioned and to go through it. And I remember getting to the appointment doors, and only boyfriends or partners were allowed in. And my mom was there with me, and going in alone, and getting a blue robe, and putting my clothes in a bag, and 10 other women lying on these beds with curtains. And I wrote about it all. And yeah. I wrote about the disappointment with the boyfriend. I was such a rock for him. He was going through some changes in his life, and I had moved into my new cabin while I was pregnant, flown back, paid for his gas money to get to a personal development course, paid for the personal development course, paid for a hotel, and flown there to physically support him. And he didn't show up for my appointment. And it was such a good learning for me in the love that I was giving versus the people that I was choosing and how they were loving me. So I'm so grateful for that experience with him. And he was such a good teacher for me. But I spoke about all of this, and the piece scared me. I hadn't been that honest with my writing voice. I had not written something that honest. And I remember laying there and going, yeah, I'm going to need to sit on that for a while before I share that with this world, because I don't want to share that for attention. I don't want to share that to stab this ex-boyfriend in the back. I don't want to do it because of that. So I didn't even look at it. I wrote it and it just came out. And then months later, I went back to it and read it and was like, and through this process of finding out that I was pregnant and talking to people in my life, so many people around me had had abortions or multiple abortions and had never spoken to me about it. And it was like this secret club that you didn't get to be a part of unless you had the courage to say, yeah, I did that. And how much does that resonate for so many things? It's like, it's permission through the human experience. And I felt like I wish that I would have had something to read about a woman's emotional choice and the tools that I had. A coach of mine said to me, I was having confliction around the fact that, like, I don't know when the soul enters the body and if this being is already inside of me, and how do I have a completion ceremony with this soul if it's there? And so my coach walked me through this exercise that I did. And, I stood in front of my wood fire with my hands on my belly and talked to this little soul saying, hey, I don't know if you're in there. And, if you are, God, thank you so much for choosing me as like the one that you want to walk with. Like, I am so flattered that you chose me. And like right now is not the time. And if you want to like come back later when I'm ready to have a child, then like, I look forward to meeting you. And if you want to choose another woman to be your mother right now, I also support you and I love you and I understand. And I shared all of these things, and I felt like
you decided to share it.
Yeah, sure. And so I felt like it was something that needed to be said, and it needed to be said because there was so much shame around abortion. And at first, I was like, I'm just going to share it on Elephant Journal because those are 30 million people that I don't know. And then, not some guy I'm going to run into in a coffee shop in Edmonton that I went to high school with, who's going to be like, hey, like, read your article. And then I remember the morning that I got, and this is the fear piece, the morning that I got that email saying, congratulations, you have been published. And watching the rain drop off the prayer flags of my woodshed and just going like, oh yeah, I'm so at peace with my choice that nothing can alter the light within me. And it doesn't matter if people understand this. I understand this. I understand why I'm doing this. And that's a really big piece, is intention with vulnerability. There's lots of different intentions with sharing our story. And so I shared it, and I ended up sharing it on my personal Facebook and Instagram. And I was called everything from Woman of the Year to murderer by the first guy I ever had sex with, my first boyfriend, who was super Christian. And I also got 300 comments, messages, emails, people I knew and didn't know saying, also like sharing their own story. And one of them was from a woman, and she said, I was 16 and my father dropped me off at the clinic and told me not to tell anyone and not to tell my mother. And you're the first person that I'm telling.
Wow.
And that was when I met my why.
That's a big moment.
Yeah. And so for me, that was my big why. And I actually had that affirmed at my book tour, because a woman, the first woman that came up to me at the Vancouver event said, Janne, I recently went through an abortion and I really was wanting some of your words to guide me. And I was wishing that you had something. And then I remembered that you did write something. And I did the completion ceremony that you talked about with talking to the soul. And it was a really big part of my process. And so I see our truth as our own medicine, because it allows us, the more authentic we become, the more true we are with ourselves, the more that we can walk through this world not hiding and full of shame. And I think that we also, with that truth, give medicine to this world to touch the parts of themselves they're afraid to look at. And I think that it takes courage to be honest with ourselves, but I think that a life that is untrue is, painted in avoidance and addiction. And that's where addiction comes from, is running away from ourselves. That's the emotional stem of addiction. And so I really feel like it's all we can do.
Well, you're doing it. That's for sure. So fast forward, how many years ago was that you first sort of decided to share that piece? How long ago is that now?
Gosh,
long time.
I think it was like, I want to say it was 2015.
Right. So fast forward now, we have a book published, multiple amazing short films that you write and direct, you're doing it. Like from that moment to now, I think it's gone, beyond. I think it's actually James Altucher that says every time Yana comes out with a new poem, I just read it over and over again or something like that. And so there's the art is still the soul of you. Your heart is still coming forward. And now you've sort of expanded into this is for the women brand or business or sort of identity that's for, like, I have a friend who's going through a breakup right now, and she's like turning to your work. And it's sort of like the go-to place for women who don't feel maybe a part of the system or a part of the, it's like this outlet that it's become. And now there's even you have a clothing line. You sell shirts that people can actually wear that says this is for the women that don't give a fuck. And when I have the book on my coffee table and people come over, they immediately pick it up. And there's just something about this. You've created something sort of bigger than yourself with this movement. I feel like it's this, and it's called This Is for the Women. And we've been having a lot of conversations about this lately because at your core and at your center, you are a writer. But your words and sort of your way of living has expanded and sort of grown in a way that we don't really know how big it could get at this point. And I know you were never really planning on that. You just write to write. And that's what I had Emery on last week, and she just creates to create. And I think that's where I come in as a marketer, is I work with these healers and these artists that I think are the world would be a better place if everybody could see their work. And your intention, as you were saying before, was never to make money off of this. It was, to share as if you were writing on the moon. But now you have a successful business doing this. And I think a lot of writers and entrepreneurs look up to you in what you've been able to create. You get to share your own words. You're not ghostwriting for somebody else. You're not writing pieces where they say, here's the title of your article, now go write 1,000 words on it. Like, you get to decide what you're saying and what you're writing, and you have a very successful business. And how does that sort of feel, like having to make money decisions now along with continuing to share your truth? And does that affect it at all now that this is sort of a business that you need to rely on to live and to continue to write? Does that affect any of your decisions? I mean, now at this point, it's business. And I always say there's a business responsibility that goes along with having a business. And what's sort of that journey been like now that it's sort of blown up in the way that it has over the past few years?
Good question. My mentor, Deanne Whalen, always says that, if you're going to be an artist, you're going to need to be an entrepreneur, because if you want to you're going to have to make money off of your art and, figure that out. And I throw spaghetti at walls, right? It's like, okay, you guys are asking me questions, I'll coach, workshops sounds fun, retreats. Okay. And so I've been very, I've been very curious as an entrepreneur, and I've looked at a lot of different ways of supporting myself and trying new things and getting distracted at times. We had a conversation last week about the fact that This Is for the Women. Like, at first I was going to sell clothing, and then the name This Is for the Women felt so powerful. And I was like, fuck, I want to start manufacturing companies and retreats and coaching under This Is for the Women. And I could honestly follow all of those ideas till I was 90. And the piece that I'm at right now is around discernment. It's like there is so many different things that get thrown at me. I have like 50 emails a day from brands and companies and people that want me to do things. And I recently found that I was just feeling a little lost within, like, so if you're familiar with Simon Sinek, I think we talked about it in the women's group as well. It's like, I know my why. My why is to empower people to live their truths and be authentic. And my what's, which are like coaching and retreats and workshops and speaking, and This Is for the Women and books. And like, there's a lot of my what's, my services, and all of those can change. can drop things. I can pause things. I can bring on more things. I thought about becoming a publication. I thought about becoming a publisher. So there's really a plethora of potential. And where I'm at is like, holy fuck, I'm so flattered that 50 people show up in my inbox every day and want to work with me. But like, what do I want to work on? And kind of taking back my power in discernment of like, I don't want potential and possibilities. I want to be really clear on where I want to focus my heart, source, and energy. And I had a really beautiful moment on Salt Spring Island with a bunch of different artists, Dustin Thomas and Sydney Woodward, and like Come to Life music crew. And there was an amazing musician, Luke Wallace, and he's like the Bob Dylan of our times. Like this kid is like, I think he's in his mid 20s and was sang these beautiful folk songs that were not full of anger, even though they were full of activism, speaking to the First Nation rights and protecting the salmon and the water. And I was so moved by how he said what he wanted to say and how he was channeling his life force and the change that I saw occurring. I had a really great check-in a couple of months ago of like, what do I want to spend my life force on? You know, we can do all kinds of things, but what's really important. So the last couple of months, I've definitely been looking at everything. And the biggest piece is I have thousands of poems. Like I have 8 books worth of poems that are ready to be published. So spending time on that and then creating space to work on the memoir of finding my father and then balancing that with the things in my business that also make me more money. And also being able, like self-publishing is a really cool avenue to do. I had my first book published with a publisher, which was a great experience too. They were so supportive and so loving, and I'm really grateful for Thought Catalog. And then it's also like, okay, cool. Well, if I go through Amazon, you know, I'm going to make 50 to 60%, which would have looked like my book did around $100,000. I'd be like 50 grand in a year off of a book, and kind of just exploring and getting wise on profit and also having more creative control over art is beautiful.
Yes.
And in the publishing platform, and just what that looks like, and recently just realizing that although This Is for the Women is amazing, that I really want to focus on my own brand and voice. And we've been navigating those waters, and I'm still in those waters of like, you know, wanting to keep the parts of my business and then waking up one day and wanting to let it all go and just write on a shack somewhere from like Thailand.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one thing I really enjoy about working with you is, again, I'm never worried that I'm not going to get the truth, no matter like maybe even how far into a plan we are. And it's actually given me permission, like, you know, we'll be working on something together. You're like, I actually like have been sitting with this the last few days and I don't really feel like I want to do that anymore. I'm like, okay. But I love it so much because it's given me permission in my business to look at those things that, you know, I've maybe started to build obligation around, or I'm really looking at it. You know, you were coaching me a couple of weeks ago, and the homework that you gave Clay and I, we tend to fall on opposite sides, as you know. More often than not, we agree, but there are certain things. He is a money guy and I'm a feelings guy or girl. And so certain things are fuck yeses for him that are not for me, and just sort of navigating that together as business partners. And you said to us, I want you to come up with a list of the people and projects and clients in your life that are fuck yeses for both of you. And then that led us to now create this list of core values with Allie, who you know as well, who's going to help us actually, you know, create this list of core values. Like, yes, we're going to take that on or no. But what's funny is creating that there are projects and things happening currently that are not, that we have to reevaluate. And because you are so open about your constant like evolving business, or like you're reevaluating I'm going to pause this. I'm going to continue with this. And you're just so like, this is what's best for me in my business right now. And there's no like explanation needed. It's given me permission to do the same thing. And I think, you know, you're an inspiration in a lot of ways, of course, to a lot of people, but the way that you conduct yourself in business is the most authentic and inspiring thing to watch, because you're not you're not afraid of disappointing people. And I think somebody asked me, like, what's one thing you don't want to take into your next year? And it was my fear of disappointing people, because it like leads so many of my decisions and so many of my conversations, is just like this fear of letting somebody down. And you don't do that in your business. This is my business. Like, I'm going to email, I'm going to get back to you when it's available, when it's good for me on my email. Another thing that triggered me was, I check my emails on Tuesdays and Thursdays. This email I got from you, and it's like, oh, I could do that. And now I've done that and changed my schedule to, only working on emails or certain things, certain times of the day, to like protect my energy a little bit more. And so just watching you grow your business and continuing to be this like authentic way where it's like, I'm going to try this thing. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to not do it anymore. Like, there's no like obligation to continue going down this road that doesn't feel good. And that's the only explanation needed. Like, this doesn't feel good, and that's okay. Like, there doesn't need to be any other explanation other than this doesn't feel right anymore. It felt right 3 months ago and now it doesn't. And that's okay. So like, just the permission, I think, yes, you're here to disrupt, but I think bigger than that, you're here to just like give people permission to be, like you said to me once, like, I'm here to hold space for you on this call. Like, let me, like, just giving us permission to just be seen is so powerful. And it's why I enjoy working with you so much. And I'm excited to sort of see what's possible when we put these two things together, because not only do you have this very creative, I think I was watching your interview with Deb, or I could be making this up, but you have Capricorn as well. So you're like this Cancer that's like so sensitive and can write this depth and connect on this level. But then there's this business side that's like, whoa.
Saturn. I think I'm
Saturn and Capricorn. Yeah. And we've got work to do. And I can see that on every call, and it's powerful. And I'm excited, I think that we've yet to peak, truly. Like, you had this big kick with Instagram, which is awesome, but now is the time to like scale that, organicness, or to use that as like a catalyst to like really bring this work out into the world. So it's just been really fun. I really enjoy our conversations on both the business side, and the other piece of it is you've seen a side of me in coaching that I've sort of like been afraid, oh, well, if she sees, that I'm struggling in these places, like, will she still want to do business with me? So I think that was like a big fear I had.
And I've had the same moments with you where, because I also flip flop, like I will go like, oh, I want to let go of that. And then a week later, a month later, I'll go, oh, maybe I do want to do that. Where I'm also in business showing that our underbellies in business takes courage. So I felt the same things with you, just so you know, when I share my pieces and my vulnerabilities, and like I told you, I express things to you all the time, and when they're still scary for me, and I'm still digesting them, and so it's funny to hear you say that, because I think that we all have that fear, right? It's like, oh, if they really see me and see all of me, they won't love me. They won't want to work with me. They won't want to marry me. They won't want to be in a relationship. They won't want to be friends with me. But in reality, the best relationships in my life, when I've shared the really vulnerable, scary things, people just say, God, my coach, one time I told her something that was really scary. And she just said, there's literally nothing that you could tell me in this world that could make you unworthy of my unconditional love.
That's so powerful.
And just being able to just like, and I don't think we blow up. I don't think we blow up the things that are our unconditional love. I think we can be dicks and sabotage, and, but it's like, if something is unconditional love and is meant to be in our context, it stays.
Yeah. It's funny. I literally said that to a friend and client last week. it was like, there's nothing that you could say or do, or no like behavior that could go on in the next, 24 hours that would make me think any less or any different. And it's funny because we have such an easy time loving other people, and like seeing them. Like there's, for all of my clients and all of my friends and all my relationships and my husband, like I said to Clay once, I was like, I don't know if there's anything that you could actually do that would make me like, not want to be in this with you. And then he named something. I was like, except that. Yeah, that's probably it. But it's like, it's hard to feel that way about yourself, and I think it's easy to see other people that way. And then, to see yourself that way. And for me and for you, it's refreshing working with you in business because it's also very personal for you as well. And it's something that people have sort of called me out on. Like, I'm so fucking done with the line. It's not personal, it's business. Or like, if this is business, like you get fucked over in business and this is just the way it is. And it's like, I'm not really willing to accept that. It is personal to me. And I know I am actually very good at separating my friendship with the personal side of their client relationship. But at the end of the day, how could I not take it personally? This is my work. This is my truth. This is my art. And I think to tell me that you can't take it personally is just like not possible. So then we turn into our toolbox, right? Which are these boundaries and these other ways to conduct ourselves. But it's refreshing because I know and maybe it's why I like working with artists and healers, because their work is so deeply personal. And to me, as funny as it sounds, marketing and selling you really at the end of the day it's very personal to me. So, I mean, it's just business is taking an interesting turn, and I think honesty is winning. And especially in the marketing space, I believe the more truthful you can be and the more honest you can be, and just the more from your heart, sharing stories, sharing truth, is what really separates you from everyone else on the planet. So yeah, I just really enjoy our calls and our connections, and just seeing you, just how you grow and how you flow and how you make decisions has been really powerful. And I'm excited for more people to see that as we continue to create coaching opportunities and maybe online programs. We don't know. We don't know where it will go.
Yes.
But we've got some fun stuff in the works, and I'm excited about that because when I see you in that light, it flows. And I like helping people continue the flow. So on that note, I feel like we answered this a little bit. You shared a really powerful moment, but I usually wrap up with the most inauthentic moment, which I would love to know, because I think that might be hard for you to share. Do you have inauthentic moments?
Well, I'm trying to, for inauthentic moments that things I've chosen, like direct choices.
Sure. Like, I think for me, an example would be like making a business decision out of ego, like sort of knowing that the values weren't aligned, but that this could be really good for my business, and sort of the fallout or for me, the most inauthentic moments are I've made 2 decisions in my life that I still am not over, because letting go is really hard. But I knew that it wasn't authentic. Like, it wasn't coming from the right place when I made that decision. And then of course it blew up. And it's happened 2 times. And so it can be a decision you made. It can be a partnership, maybe something you chose to share, that, promotional stuff that doesn't feel aligned, and sort of how that sits with you in your business.
Yeah. Well, I definitely just trying to think of the biggest piece, and it is hard. It definitely is hard. It's a good question. I think that there's a lot of, we just had a moment that's showing up, maybe not the most inauthentic moment, but I made a call, and I love working with you, and I love how you storytell, but I personally, I want to give away more and more of my delegation of choices, because I want to be more right-brained and less left-brained. And I personally made a call when we were working together to say yes to something going out where I didn't really sit with it long enough. And it was the launch of the film, I'll Never Be Well Behaved Woman. And I also make tank tops. And I made a tank top like a while ago. And we were doing a marketing thing with both of those to go out. And I kind of was just doing the steps and saying yes to things. And it felt fine in my body when we approved it. And it made sense. And, you know, at the end of the day, people are really sensitive around sales and marketing because we feel like we're being a burden on people. And I had someone once say to me, like, Yana, what if you realize that like people were fucking excited to see your stuff? Like they were excited to buy a t-shirt. They were excited to see a film, you know, and then marketing can become full of lightness and ease. And so also when I share this, I think part of me still has that fear around selling things.
No, really? I had no idea.
And so we put out a clip of the film. It was like a minute-long clip in a marketing campaign with a shirt. And it was pre-launch, and I went out surfing. I didn't look at my computer until 1 p.m. And then I saw it, and in my body, I went, "Oh no!" And I deleted it. I deleted the post, I deleted everything. And I wrote you immediately and just said, I need to change this. And the film, gosh, like, you know, the film had like 30 or some women in it and, you know, took years, you know, complicated ways. But that film there's things that we do that are like just straight sacred from source. And I was so excited to release both of the things, but I didn't honor that like the film needed to stand alone. Mm-hmm. And I didn't see that, you know, that was my piece because we're still getting to know each other to know. And I take full accountability for that. And it felt bad it was like this kind of like it felt like I let myself down. And, you know, who knows what everyone else's experience was. They probably didn't think anything of it. They're probably like, cool, she's got a new tank top. I'm excited about that. Cool, there's a film. But for me, it didn't feel in alignment with me because I felt like the film was just like, should be its own thing. And so, and then digesting that. And my biggest fear, because my piece is truth and authenticity, is not being authentic. Because if I step out of alignment in my authenticity, then I'm out of alignment with my why. And then I have no grounds to do anything, it feels like. And then there's the empathy and compassion of, yeah, but we're also learning. You know, but we're also having new experiences, and we get to choose moments that are teachers for us to understand what is important to us. As somebody who preaches integrity, I chose to be the other woman a year ago. I slept with somebody twice who was in a relationship, and I am the ball buster of integrity. I fucking grill people on their integrity. And so that was a really humbling experience of like, the fact that we do have moments where we step outside of, and they can be conscious or unconscious. That was more so me just being overwhelmed and not paying enough attention to details that are incredibly important. And another moment that showed up, I don't know how are we doing with time?
You're great.
Was, I don't know if it was a choice. Everything's a choice. I was interviewed by a large magazine. I signed a contract, so legally I won't say who it was, to share part of my story of my abortion in a series that they were doing on doctor shaming. And I was so excited. It was like the beginning of my career, and I was like, this big magazine. I was like, oh my God, this opportunity. And I got flown to Seattle for this photo shoot, and I got there, and I went into hair and makeup, and they like curled my hair, and I don't wear makeup. Part of honestly my why is like, I don't wear makeup now after this moment, which this is perfect because this was where this all became very clear to me, was that authenticity means a lot of different things. And I got hair, makeup, and this photographer was taking photos of me, big studio, lights, assistants. And he was showing me photos of myself. And I got so uncomfortable because I didn't know who the fuck the woman in that photo was. I had so much makeup on. I could show you this photo and it does not look like me. I had become like this commercialized
version
product for an interview thing. And I was just like, he showed me the photo and my heart dropped, and he had a really hard time photographing me. And later I washed my face off and we went out for oysters, and this photographer who's a well-known guy from New York and I were talking, and he just looked at me. He's like, God, this is how I want to capture you. Like, now you're relaxed and you're at ease. Like, what happened? And I said, well, to be honest, like, I had my hair and my makeup. I didn't even look like myself. And I felt, I didn't like the photos. I didn't like what I looked like. I was so uncomfortable with that. And he said, Yana, you could have just gone and washed your face off. Like, you're the boss. Don't let anybody in this world boss you around. You're the fucking boss. Fuck whatever person's giving you an opportunity. They will always want you to play their game. Play your own game. And I realized that I gave my power away. And I thought that I needed to do that to fit into this feature that I was so excited about that would help my career, when it was the most harmful thing. And then that feature actually, they skewed my words, and then I had signed an agreement and a contract, and I was locked into the words going to print. So they did. They victimized my words. So that was like one of the worst experiences I've had, which you'd look at my media kit and be like, wow, it's like, no, that was terrible. Yeah. But a good teacher, because now for photo shoots, I don't wear makeup. It's a strong piece that I sometimes deal with hormonal acne and it'll break out, and it's like, I don't want to show any part of me that isn't there. So I think that I believe that we always have the right teachers in our lives, and sometimes they suck, and sometimes we are the teacher. And so when you say inauthentic, it's like, I get to be my teacher in moments too, of choosing to not. And when we're not choosing authenticity, we're not choosing our power. So it's
I feel like in all three of those moments you just shared, like, authenticity sort of like stepped in, like, and I was wondering like what your answer to that was going to be, because in working with you, like you shared that moment with us when we launched something, like, you immediately just deleted it. Like, there was no like, oh, is this going to affect It was like, no, this doesn't feel authentic. I'm going to write this. I'm going to correct this. And I think in all of those stories, like, you just, it's like this, like, that doesn't feel right. That's not, I'm just going to like go ahead and change that right there and not do that again. And so I think, any like sort of blip or moment that doesn't feel right, you don't take it, you don't let it sort of get in or sink in or affect you too long. And I think in everything that you just shared, there's like a major, like, one, you're very self-aware. So you kind of can catch things really quickly. And I see you do it in business all the time. You're so self-aware, which is amazing. It's like my favorite thing about anybody is self-awareness. But then like how quickly you're able to just like write that or change it or fix it into a place that feels good. And so in all three of those stories, yes, it stemmed from like an inauthentic sort of blip or like hiccup, but you were able to like turn it around so quickly. And, my next question is always like, do you have an authentic moment to share? But I actually feel like every single thing you've shared, like you've shared so many stories, which is, you're such a storyteller on this podcast today, where in every single one of them, I was like, yes, this is why I work with her. Like, this is why I want to create with her, because every single word out of your mouth is authentic. And, I just sort of let you roll for like a 5-minute story. And I was like, I don't know where we're going to go, but it's going to be authentic as fuck. And that's the name of this podcast. And that's like my mission, is to bring out the truth and authenticity in people, and just listening to your stories and like getting to drop in with you, and you just flow. And it's just really beautiful. And I'm really grateful, and I'm excited. I know you're working on, like you said, like 8 books of poetry, but we can expect a second one fairly soon, right?
Yes, yeah, hopefully. I said it was going to take me a couple of months to do my first book, and I spent like 6 months in the order of all the poems. But this one, I think, is going to be a bit easier. It's hopefully 3 to 4 months. kind of timeline that we're looking for that book. Yeah.
Great. I'm just so excited for that. I think the world, like I said at the beginning, is, hungry. And I'm realizing that more and more, like, people are hungry, and there's a lot of haters out there, and there's a lot of people that aren't ready for it, but there's a lot of people that are, and they're like actually craving it. And so anything I can do to help get this out to more people, I'm like fully invested. And I know you know that. So we have the book coming out soon. You can buy her current book if you don't have it. Like, you're probably living under a rock, but This Is for the Women Who Don't Give a Fuck. And her website is Janne, Janne Robinson.com. And you can get all the things. And then coaching. Do you have spots? Like, can people coach with you right now?
Yeah, they can. Yeah. Absolutely. Totally.
There's an application. Yeah, there's an application on her site that you can fill out to do coaching. And I have to say, I've made a lot of business decisions in the last couple of years, but diving into that coaching process with you is one of the better decisions I've made. I find myself just sharing with everyone in my life what we're working on, and it's affecting. So just, one session with you then goes on to affect everybody that I'm talking to and everyone I'm speaking with, and the books you're having us read, and just the homework that was very uncomfortable. You made me sing, which I will not do right now, but she made me sing on a call one day, and it's profound work. You're doing big, big, big work, and you definitely inspired the hell out of me. So I'm excited to have this conversation today.
And ditto, it's like, it's the same, it's the name, even the name of your company is Authentic Audience. It's like, yeah, of course. And marketing is just storytelling, and honest storytelling makes the most sense. And so, I really appreciate everything that I've experienced from you is healing me in a marketing sense of like understanding and intuitively, even just like you catching things and a lot of anything, working in marketing, being a lawyer is also holding some emotional space and understanding. And you do that really intuitively and beautifully. And I'm excited to continue to grow and work together as well.
Thank you. Yeah, there's this theme that's been coming up is, especially in the whole business world, but I met someone very successful last week, and you can tell that it's half business and half intuition. And most of those important decisions are made in intuition, and to allow ourselves the space to make decisions from that place, I think is really important. And I think that's one thing we're pretty good at holding each other accountable as. So yeah, I'd love to check back in with you in a few months, or maybe, I don't know, once a year. I just feel like you get so much accomplished in a short amount of time. It would be a whole new conversation next year. So
hell yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. So again, JanneRobinson.com. You can follow her on Instagram. I'm sure you are already. Janne Robinson. And also her brand, This Is for the Women, where you can buy all the cool things. I'm like, really want the walk tall ring.
We're going to get it for you.
Anyway, so thank you for being here, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. And until next time, keep growing.